Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Kelvin, and this is Wildcard Wednesday on the Articulate Beast. Wildcard Wednesday is the day I like to set aside for random topics that I feel need to be addressed or are just fun, weird, or otherwise entertaining stuff. It's also when I'd like to do Q&As and asks, so don't hesitate to chime in, okay? Recently, the Republican candidates for President of the United States held a debate, and a very important, albeit left field question was posed to the presidential wannabes. What woman do you feel deserves to be on the $10 bill? The answers given prove just how out of touch the candidates are from the electorate. Most gave flippant or ridiculous answers like Mike Huckabee, who wanted to put his wife Janet on the sawbuck, or Ben Carson, who wanted to put his mother Sonia on the bill. Other women were proposed, women who aren't even Americans, like Mother Teresa or former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. And then there was Carla Fiorina, who said,
I wouldn't change the $10 bill or the $20 bill. I think, honestly, it's a gesture. I don't think it helps to change our history. What I would think is that we ought to recognize that women are not a special interest group. When women are the majority of this nation, we are half the potential of this nation, and this nation will be better off when every woman has the opportunity to live the life she chooses.
More than just a little dismissive and massively appalling. This is not changing history. It's recognizing women's role in history. A gesture? How about an acknowledgement? Or are old white dudes the only people she feels deserves recognition? I'm an old white dude. What bill would she put me on, I wonder? As for women being better off when they can live the life they choose, what if they choose to go to Planned Parenthood? To be in control of their own bodies? Those aren't things that Carly Fiorina would choose for women based on her track record. Anyway, I put my mind to it, and although I have neither a staff nor handlers, was able to come up with a pretty comprehensive list. Here it is in chronological order. Number 1, Anne Hutchinson, 1591 to 1643. Vocally disagreed with the Puritan clergy of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Her eloquence and charisma garnered her many followers, but it also got her arrested and tried for heresy, for which she and her followers were then all banished from the colony. They moved down to what is now Rhode Island, where Anne created a settlement that became Portsmouth. Anne was America's first crusader for religious freedoms. No wonder she was banished. Number 2, Abigail Addams, 1744 to 1818. Abigail Addams was more than just the wife of our second president, John Adams. She was his closest confidant and advisor. She helped, in a great sense, John Adams to craft the laws and conventions that govern us to this day. As First Lady, she would often act in diplomatic matters as her husband's proxy and was more than equal to the task. She was also a guide and influence to her son, John Quincy Adams, as he moved through his political life, eventually becoming the 6th President of the United States. Number 3, Clarissa Harlow Barton, 1821 to 1912. Although Clara Barton is mostly known as a battlefield nurse during the American Civil War, most people don't know about her early life as an educator and educational reform advocate. Barton opened the first free school in the state of New Jersey in Bordentown, and although growing the school from no students to 603 in just 1 year, the school board refused to hire her to run the school, giving that position to a man instead. Clara Barton then moved to Washington, D.C., where she became a patent clerk, the first woman to do so, enjoying equal pay for equal work, by the way. The Buchanan administration didn't like this, though, and had her demoted to copyist at a severe cut in pay. And oh yeah, she founded the Red Cross. Number 4, Elizabeth Blackwell, 1821 to 1910. Moving to the U.S. from the U.K., Elizabeth Blackwell became the first woman in the United States to receive a medical degree. She also was the first woman on the United Kingdom's medical register, making her a double first. A born abolitionist, Blackwell sided with the North during the American Civil War and trained nurses for the battlefield. Number 5. Harriet Tubman, 1822 to 1913. Born into slavery in Maryland, Araminta Ross would go on to become a pivotal figure in the abolitionist movement as well as the women's suffrage movement. Harriet Tubman escaped the bonds of slavery, but she didn't stop there. No, she kept going back, even though it meant beatings or death in her capacity as a runaway slave if she were caught. She went back to rescue 70 more slaves and guide them to freedom via the Underground Railroad, which is not, by the way, a subway, but a series of safe houses and hiding places on the road to the north. She added more danger to her life by acting as a spy for the Union Army and aiding John Brown in recruiting men for the raid on Harper's Ferry. Number 6. Victoria Woodhull, 1838 to 1927. Victoria Woodhull was an early proponent of women's rights and labor reform. A leader in the suffrage movement, Victoria promoted free love. Now, before you raise a shocked eyebrow, at the time, free love meant the right to marry, divorce, and have children without any government interference. Anyway, always politically active, Victoria became the first woman to be nominated for president of the United States as the candidate for the Equal Rights Party in 1872. Her run failed due to an arrest on obscenity charges only days before the election. Those charges coming from an article that she wrote outing prominent minister Henry Ward Beecher as having had an adulterous affair. Now, the allegations were true, but the patriarchal society frowned on women exposing male clergymen to ridicule in defense of another woman. Number 7. Jane Addams, 1860 to 1935. One of the most influential women of the 19th and 20th centuries, Jane Addams was a leader in the fields of social reform, equality, and sociology. Addams changed the way Americans looked at the problems surrounding motherhood and children, stating if women were to be responsible for cleaning up their communities and making them better places to live, they need to be able to vote and to do so effectively. In 1889, she co-founded Hull House, and in 1920, the ACLU. Jane Addams was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1931, becoming the first American woman to do so. Number 8. Margaret Sanger, 1879 to 1966. Margaret Sanger was, if you'll pardon the turn of phrase, the mother of Planned Parenthood. Sanger was a nurse and an educator, as well as being a pioneer in sex education and an advocate for proper birth control practices. Margaret Sanger led the charge for women's control over their own bodies, a fight which is still being fought today in exam rooms, courtrooms, and legislatures across America. The ideas that she proposed and the organizations that she founded would later evolve into Planned Parenthood. And said Planned Parenthood is often the only voice for women's reproductive rights and needs your support more than ever in order to weather the current political onslaught against women having the right to control their own bodies. Number 9, and this is my personal vote, Frances Perkins, 1880 to 1965. Frances Perkins was the U.S. Secretary of Labor under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and although that sounds commonplace today, she was not only the longest-serving Secretary of Labor, but the first woman ever appointed to be a presidential cabinet member. Under her watch, she oversaw the Civilian Conservation Corps, the Public Works Administration, the Federal Works Agency, as well as the labor aspect of the National Industrial Recovery Act. Frances helped to create the Social Security Administration, which provided unemployment benefits as well as pensions for the elderly and welfare for the destitute. Creating the Fair Labor Standards Act, Frances Perkins was the woman who brought us the first minimum wage and overtime laws, not to mention the child labor laws and workplace safety regulations she enacted. It's no wonder conservatives don't mention her. Frances Perkins deserves to be on the $10 bill more than Alexander Hamilton, first Secretary of the Treasury. Big deal. What did we have in the Treasury back then? $27, a bunch of debts, and a few seashells? Number 10. Eleanor Roosevelt, 1884 to 1962. The longest serving of all First Ladies and one of the most politically active. Eleanor Roosevelt is the model which the role of the modern First Lady is based upon. Of course, she had many other outstanding accomplishments, not the least of which was getting the United States to join the United Nations, as well as becoming one of the first delegates. She chaired the UN's Commission on Human Rights and headed the creation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. She also chaired President Kennedy's Presidential Commission on the Status of Women. Roosevelt was a great leader in the Civil Rights Movement as well. And all this is beyond what some people consider to be her greatest achievement, that of being arguably the first, albeit unelected, woman president of these United States, providing continuous and strong leadership while her husband FDR was ill. So there you have it. I don't have a staff to do my research, nor did I need any to compile this list. Women have made tremendous contributions to the formation and direction of these United States. But if you look at the history textbooks, you wouldn't get that impression. Women are so much more than just mothers and homemakers, although in that capacity, they are the indispensable and unsung backbone of our culture. Women have always had a pivotal role to play in our history, and it's high time we recognize that. I've used the word culture several times in this chat, and it's crucial to understand that a culture is made up of many parts: men and women, black, white, Native American, Hispanic, Asian, straight, gay, lesbian, transgender, bi, highborn, lowborn, whatever your religious affiliation, or even if you have none. No matter how you fit into the picture, you fit in, and you're needed and should be respected. Everyone matters. Make your contribution and be proud of it. Don't hide it. History, the future, needs you all. Before I go, I want to give a list of some honorable mentions. Since the prevailing wisdom seems to be that you need to be dead to be honored on American money, these great women, thankfully, do not qualify. I'm very happy to say we still have these living role models as honorable mentions. Sally Ride, the first American woman in space. Sandra Day O'Connor, the first female Supreme Court Justice. Temple Grandin, author, researcher, autism activist. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Supreme Court Justice. And Sonia Sotomayor, Supreme Court Justice. In all fairness, and in the spirit of full disclosure, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie did pick Abigail Addams, and Scott Walker chose Clara Barton. Rand Paul chose Susan B. Anthony, but she, along with Sacagawea, have both been honored on the dollar coin, so they've both kind of had their shot. The rest of the field played it safe and chose Rosa Parks. Well, I hope that I've opened a path to civil discourse here, and I look forward to your comments, suggestions, and ideas. Don't forget to like and subscribe. My name is Chris Kelvin. Thanks for watching, and keep an open mind. See you next time on The Articulate Beast.